Watch The Toxic Avenger now on Screambox. The radioactive superhero that's certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes is available to watch now from the comfort of your home. Bloody FM listeners get a special introductory offer by going to bit.ly/ToxyFM. That's bit.ly/TOXIEFM for a special offer on Screambox.
Sometimes you gotta do something.
Welcome to the new look Horror Bytes on Safe Room, the show where we discuss the smaller scares and teenier terrors available to play on your gaming devices. From 5-minute prototypes to tantalizing demos and ambitious small-scale games, Horror Bytes aims to celebrate all kinds of terrifying micro-monsters in the indie horror gaming space. I am your host Neil Bolt, and joining me as ever in this endeavour is Jay Krieger. How are you doing, Jay?
Man, doing very well, ready for this week's lineup.
Yes, and in case you hadn't seen or heard about the changes to Horror Bytes since last year, episodes now run every other Thursday and feature 2 games that we've chosen based on a theme. And the current theme, established last week, or last episode I should say, because it's 2 weeks, is Detectives. So we select small horror games, concepts, game jams, and the like that fit those themes. So as we said before, last episode out, we started this theme, had some fun games to start out with the detective theme. So here's another couple. So first up, Jay, you're sending us to hell, deep in hell, in fact. So please tell us more about your pick this week.
So my pick this week is Deep in Hell from developer Desti Dino Games. And, the detective angle thus far has been one that I think has really been working well with the sort of blending in horror, but this one is a little bit more overtly, as you said, hellish, because of the fact that this is a visual novel that tells the story of a detective named Harry who finds himself literally descending into the depths of hell to interrogate a bevy of devilish suspects who may or may not be behind the murder of the big man upstairs. So this is a game that is presented in a fashion that anybody that's familiar with visual novels will be familiar with. And, right off the bat, I think that we've covered visual novels in the past. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I almost think like, oh, this maybe should have just been like a text adventure, because the artwork that's accompanied there has not always justified like its own inclusion, just because of, maybe it's subjective in some cases where the art style doesn't sync with me or click with me. But, the case here, like I found the visuals to be one of the strongest aspects, if not the strongest aspect of Deep in Hell, because of the fact, it utilizes this charcoal art style that really does emphasize characters utilizing, crimson reds and burnt oranges, and it has this really fantastic look to it. I think that helps to kind of just like further establish not only the setting of hell, but ultimately, this notion of you descending into hell and the madness that ensues with that. Like, I just found that the sort of charcoal style of it really captures that and sort of like emphasizes that notion of setting. And, that is carried over as well in terms of talking about like strong artistic design. The main sort of visual is as basically like in the middle of the screen. It's supposed to look like an elevator because quite literally your office is an elevator. And then on either side of that it's bookended by border images of hell itself. So you see kind of like these fiery lakes with hands rising up from them. And furthermore, that does a good job of kind of establishing a sense of space for something that, again, is a visual novel. It doesn't have, the wide sort of like landscapes that maybe we saw in a game such as Within, which we covered last year. But I thought that this did a good job of like establishing a sense of space and the players involved, which again, that is a good sense of just like atmosphere in general for this. Likewise, in terms of detective stories go, this one kind of has the feeling of like the Gumshoe, right? Like 40s and 50s kind of detective angle. And that comes across as well in the music for the game, which almost has like a Grim Fandango kind of, era age to it. I'm not going to say it's of the same caliber, but that was like the first thing that I thought about, in that it's not overly brooding, if you will, but it's kind of got this little like twang to it, that
Yeah, it's
kind of,
kind of
you know.
discordant, isn't it?
Mhm.
It's like that sort of typical gumshoe jazzy stuff, but with
Yeah.
it feels a bit out of tune and mumbled, I guess that's the best way. Yeah, muted. That's it. Yeah, in a way that's quite interesting. So yeah, the score was definitely one of the things I quite liked about this.
Yeah, before we get into, more of the narrative, and another aspect of this, what did you, think of this one?
So yeah, like I think visually it's quite strong. Yeah, I mean, we'll caveat this by saying that this is nearly 5 years old at this point. So
Mhm.
with the format we're working with now, it's not always about the new stuff. It's more about what fits the theme. So you can look at how things have changed since then, and go, okay. But yeah, this the developer doesn't seem to have done anything with any games since, unfortunately.
No.
So you can't really sort of have a sort of visual range to see what's happened, since if there's been any sort of evolution. So with that in mind, this is a really badly written game.
Yeah.
In many ways. I know it's trying to evoke the noirish sort of gumshoe stuff, but it's a poor approximation of it. And
Mm.
like we've seen plenty of it in different ways, and done quite well. Yeah. But yeah, here it's not just spelling mistakes, bad grammar, stuff that is not just you can make those, that happens, but yeah, it just feels very very rough. I think it kind of takes you out of it and makes you feel a bit not quite as into the game as a whole for what it is, because it's quite short anyway. You want to be having a bit more, especially with a visual novel. Yeah, you need to have good writing, or at least engaging writing. I think you can have rough writing that has something about it that makes you go, okay, well, it's maybe not perfect, but it has like a kick to it that gets you into it anyway. And the art could have helped that, I think, but
Mm.
even that's fairly limited still, because of the nature of the game. It is being a visual novel. So yeah, again, you're kind of left with the shrugging your shoulders, and this was again a game jam game, so you can understand there are limitations and things like that. And but writing, if you're going to do a visual novel, is definitely somewhere you need to be pushing, far on it. Yeah, and as a story as well, it's poorly structured and just very unsatisfying. So, yeah, it didn't really do it for me in the places it should, for the kind of game it is. What about you, though?
Yeah, that was the big thing for me, that kind of, like, took me out of the experience was the writing, right? It's one thing to we've played games that clearly were written and developed by non-native English speakers and whatnot,
Yeah.
which is one of those things where it's like, yeah, I can look past some of those aspects, but here it's like it's not only rough grammatically, tonally, but also it's just like a complete misunderstanding of, the era and the genres with which it's trying to draw influence from. And, that can be surmised basically by just, Harry as a character. He's not suave. He's not especially interesting. He's got hot lines such as, I want to fuck and I still have my dick. Like those are literally like lines of dialogue from the game. And it's just like, it lacks the nuance and the
Yeah.
suaveness again that like a gumshoe would have. And, at no point does Harry have this sort of like cool noir detective persona. He's somebody that I think has interesting relationships, and it speaks to the premise of the game, which
Yes.
allows you to be interviewing various demons and even like Chiron, the I think that's how I pronounce that, the basically ferryman for the underworld and whatnot. But at the same time, like nobody has anything interesting to say, and at certain points, like you get to make choices in terms of like what to do and what
Mm.
questions to ask them in the case of your interrogation. But these I found to be completely sort of like innocuous almost, and sort of like they didn't have any sort of interesting outcome on dialogue or the story itself.
Yeah,
And
they didn't. In some cases, they didn't even fit what
no,
was being said. Like as
mm-mm,
an option, they just felt like a There's no free through thought from what they were trying to do to what some choices were, and
yeah.
repetition was probably another big problem, I think, in that as well, especially in terms of trying to put across some jokes. The hell
Mhm.
as a pun thing is,
Right.
yeah, it gets really overdone.
Yeah. And ultimately, that finale is completely ham-fisted, and it wraps up, almost instantaneously. So you don't have any time to almost process the sort of like revelation that's made, and then the experience is over. And it just makes for a game that, while I said it reminds me of like Within from a visual standpoint in terms of like utilizing art smartly in a visual novel and whatnot, but like narratively speaking, this fell completely flat and just has a bunch of issues that make it something that, unfortunately, it had a great premise and everything, but I just found this to be something that I'm not going to think about ever again, unfortunately. Despite that premise, again, being quite strong, I think. And, the notion that you could have a game like this where you're just interviewing the denizens of hell and interrogating people is like pretty cool. But again, it doesn't go anywhere meaningfully. And yeah, the characters themselves are completely forgettable, especially Harry himself.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, that is our first pick out of the way. Okay, not starting great, but hey, things could get brighter in the second half, and we will be back with that second half right after this.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Every sip of Coca-Cola brings you closer to the excitement of the FIFA World Cup 26. Because nothing compares to the joy. So grab a Coke and drink in the FIFA World Cup 26. No purchase necessary. 13 plus in 50 U.S. states and D.C. with a web-enabled device. Ends March 1st with 8 entry periods. Rules at CokeURL.com/soccer rules.
This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Selling your car shouldn't feel like a second job. It should feel easy. With Carvana, it is. Just visit Carvana.com, enter your license plate or VIN, answer a few quick questions, and get an offer in minutes. Like what you see? We'll pick it up right from your door and hand you your check. No haggling, no hassle, no problem. Car selling made easy on Carvana. Pickup fees may apply.
Welcome back. For my pick, we have Viktor Dobrik's Eastern European serial killer thriller Detektiv. As Detective Fyodor Mikhailovich, we are called to investigate a strange murder. In this 15-minute game, it's a first-person exploration game mainly, and you search for clues at the crime scene, which is fairly normal stuff by any standards that we've done this before. But things that interest me about this one, the developers very much into games like Half-Life, and you kind of get that feeling because obviously Half-Life had a lot of sort of Eastern European inspiration in Half-Life 2 especially. And this being very Eastern Bloc in terms of what you see in doing that and the apartment building in the game. Yeah, it's fantastic for that. So, basically, it's one of our favorite sort of subgenres, which is the old job for the ghouls thing, where you are going through the mundanity of a day-to-day job. It just so happens to be that you're a detective investigating a murder, but yeah, you are doing the job. So each day of this small run starts in your apartment with knocks at your door and like getting up to answer it and basically being told, there's been a murder sort of thing. You've got to come with us and come and see this case. And then you go to the murder scene and fairly open area with a forest sort of area, like make to look quite massive. And you search for the clues in that thing before going home for the day and repeating the cycle. So like most games of that sort, it follows a few day cycle of like things being a bit different each time, but quite punchy in terms of how it does it. Now, for me, I think what made this quite cool as an experience is these little immersive details that it adds to the experience. I mean, when you get to the crime scene in the first day, there's like cars going by on the road next to where the thing is constantly. It's a simple looping trick, and it shows up in other areas of the game where it's a bit much, like when you have forensics, like taking pictures of the crime scene, and you just keep hearing the camera flash going off like all the time. It's like, and they're not really doing much beyond that. It's for atmosphere rather than proper full effect. It's good sort of cloaking, if you will. And even with the car things, it's like you get it, like and knocks at the door, repetitive stuff. But again, used quite interestingly. Like there's a good bit with like sheep being by the farmhouse. Little things like that. Great detail. Doesn't have anything to do with the game, but it's nice flavor that really makes these sort of outdoor environments feel really big. And it uses like cinematic effects, in terms of like using a free camera to sort of go around different areas. They sometimes seem a bit unnecessary, I think, but I think that might be because they used to hide like loading times, because the pace is quite smoothed, in terms of what they do with this game. Like in going from area to area isn't really about loading so much as they have these little cutscenes, which are these sort of free camera scenes of like the outside of a building or like traveling along the road on a car for a bit. And yeah, it makes it feel like it flows as a game so much better. I think the downside for the game in that sense, in trying to be quite open looking, is in those open areas, it does chug along a bit. Makes it feel a bit technically like it's wheezing, which is fine. Certainly any time I ran, it felt like it was going to sort of die on me at some point. But I don't know, it just, the atmosphere it was lovely and dingy, and like that apartment block design, like we've seen so many sort of low res or PS1, PS2 era style visuals of interiors, and yeah, this one looks quite interesting in its interiors, and even when you go on those outside areas for the exteriors as well. The ending's very abrupt. I mean, it's the other sort of downside. It does feel like there's should be more game to come. Like where's the rest of this sort of thing? Which is fine. Again, it's a small experience, and it's not like a multi-ending kind of thing. So it's got the potential to be a bigger game one day if they wanted, and I do hope so in a way, because there's some really great experiences in this. But in playing this, I did play a couple of other Vuxa games, to sort of get a feel for it, because I did like what they've done here. And they're really good at sort of building atmosphere. I believe, in fact, we played one of the games before called Reverend. That's you sort of turn up at that church, and all that weird stuff happens, and I think we covered that a couple of years ago, maybe. And we quite liked that at the time. This is definitely feeds in that same sort of place. So I quite like that about it. It's a developer we've also said we happened to have covered before, but since that time, I think it was one of their first games, they made a few, and there's some really interesting things in there. Detektiv is showing so much evolution from when we covered them before as well. So great stuff from me. What about you though?
Yeah, no, that's a great connection, considering seeing where they've, where they're at now to where they were when they were releasing Reverend. And I think that's one that I'll definitely be going and checking out some of their library. I'm looking at it, and there's a great variety here of kind of like horror experiences that they've been developing in the interim. But no, I think for this one, like you had said, the large environments for me, despite the fact that once or twice I kind of hit some chugging along. That was pretty impressive. And additionally, like I found the lighting to be very good in this, especially when you're kind of wandering through the halls of that apartment block and whatnot. I found that to be great in terms of just like the atmosphere and just overall, like having free reign over this huge environment, I thought was great. And, the culminating aspect of those two things, is one or two brief cinematics that are in this game that help to further establish the sense of space. Like you get this sort of brief cinematic where it's like an exterior shot of the apartment block at night, and just like the lighting is really great there. And furthermore, the direction of there further establishes like the building and its surrounding environments in a way that's great. I thought the sort of like satanic nature of the crime scene was a little indicative of like True Detective. And what I really appreciated about that was that it built from that satanic aspect in including like a supernatural element that I think worked quite well with one or two particular moments that aren't necessarily jump scares, but I think furthermore, they just sort of show off this approach to horror in a way that worked for me, that made this more than just like a simple whodunit. And, you know, as you said, it's got a bit of abrupt finish to it, but it left me wanting more, which, as we've said now, is one of the best ways that some of these experiences can end, because of the fact that you're just like, yeah, I can see this being either fleshed out more, or it makes a game indicative of something that the developer's done that was quite effective. And I think for something that is, you know, a murder, satanic kind of mystery, this one was quite strong, and largely it's like presentation and the size of it all. So yeah, like you, I'm definitely now going to go back and play some of their more recent stuff, because yeah, this is a developer that has clearly grown their craft approach to storytelling in the interim since Reverend.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, as ever, you can find the links to these games in the episode description as well, so if you wish to try them out for yourself. But that is all for this week. So thank you again, Jay, for talking about these short horror games with me. And if you, the listener, have a short horror game, a demo, game jam entry, or proof of concept that you think we should be highlighting, or maybe you just wish to suggest a theme for the episode, Jay here will show you how.
You can send us emails at saferoompod@gmail.com for any recommendations and whatnot. And then across all of our social, that's being Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, YouTube, you can follow us at SafeRoomPod for show updates. And also, you know, there's naturally links to all the games that we cover on Horror Bytes provided on the socials, and as well in the episode description for this week's episode on whatever your preferred podcast platform is that you're listening to.
Fantastic. We will be back with more small-scale horror in 2 weeks.
Watch The Toxic Avenger now on Screambox. The radioactive superhero that's certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes is available to watch now from the comfort of your home. Bloody FM listeners get a special introductory offer by going to bit.ly/ToxyFM. That's bit.ly/ToxieFM for a special offer on Screambox.
Sometimes you gotta do something.